little slide. So what is the Alpina XD3? Well, like all Alpinas, it's based on a BMW donor car. In this case, it's based on the X3 35D, which is the flagship X3. Alpina get hold of that and improve upon the engine, the gearbox. They give the interior the Alpina sort of touches, but most importantly, they give you the Alpina ride and suspension setup, which just does wonders to the way the car performs. It thrives in this sort of weather. You know, it's 4 degrees outside, damp roads. It is unbelievable, it really is. And I can't believe that I'm saying that or getting excited about an SUV, because SUVs usually don't do much to me. You know, they don't excite me. Under the bonnet, we've got a 3-litre 6-cylinder twin turbo diesel engine, pumping out about 350 horsepower and 520 pound-feet of torque. Now that torque figure is the most significant one of the two, because torque is very good at picking up heavy objects like SUVs and throwing them down the road, quite literally. And it is a mighty unit, absolutely mighty. The difference with it being in this car with the all-wheel drive is the fact that you can just lay all of that 520 pound-feet of torque down coming out of a junction. I think 0 to 40 odd miles an hour in this car would be quicker than pretty much anything else out there. Performance figures on this car are quite mind-boggling as well. So it's got an official 0 to 60 time of 4.9 seconds, but like all BMW and Alpina times, they're very conservative. I've timed this car at 4.6 seconds to 60 miles an hour and about 11.5 seconds to 100 miles an hour, which is unbelievable for a 2-ton SUV. It has a top speed of about 160 miles an hour. On the motorway, I've seen up to 50 mpg, but on long runs, you'd normally see low 40s. And as a sort of average or an overall test figure, since I've had this car for the week, I've seen low 30s. Now, that might not sound a lot for a diesel car, but when you think about the performance that's on offer, the weight of this car, the base price for the XD3 is £56,500. That's about 9 grand more than the X3 35D, but you're getting a hell of a lot more car for that. The ride, the performance, the handling, but even things like the beautiful Alpina dials in here, or the little plate down here that tells me this is number 415 of all XD3s ever produced. And in fact, there's only, I think there's 45 that have been registered in the UK since this came out 3 or so years ago. Now, over the last couple of years, there have been a couple of manufacturers who have brought out very sporty type SUVs, namely Porsche. Obviously, they've always had the Cayenne. Can't really put the Cayenne in the same bracket, because once you sort of tick the right box, say the V8 turbo diesel and you give it a couple of bare minimum options, which you kind of have to do with Porsche because, you know, they come so sparsely optioned, you're looking at a car that's well over 70 grand. So I'm talking about the Macan, which I personally love the Macan. I think it looks beautiful, very sharp. It drives and handles very well. It's a bit smaller and less practical than this car, but they don't have an equivalent engine in the Macan. You've got the Macan Diesel S, which has got the brilliant 3-litre turbo diesel from Audi in there, but we're talking 260 odd brake horsepower. It's not in the same league as this car in terms of straight line performance. There's more Macans in Chelsea than there have been of these XD3s produced in the whole of the UK. There's now the Mercedes GLC 43, I believe that's what it's called. But again, that's a petrol car. It's going to consume twice the gas that this is going to consume over the same sort of journey. You know, I've not driven one, so I can't say this as a matter of fact, but I can't believe that, say, the GLC 43 will offer you the same ride as this car. So yeah, this is 56.5 grand base. This particular car is 61 grand. We've got things like the Pro Nav in here. We have got the all-important panoramic sunroof, which just feeds so much light into this cabin. You can get away with having black leather. We've got folding mirrors, we've got reverse camera, and I think that's pretty much it. Oh, an HK sound, which is fantastic. Of course, you can go crazy with options like you can on any car, but you've got to kind of set yourself a price limit. I think 60 grand is a very, very good price point for this car to be at. Don't talk to me about Range Rover Evoques or Land Rover Evoques or whatever you want to call them. The HSE one of that. I mean, a 4-pot diesel. You can't compare this to a Range Rover Sport either, because let's face it, 60 grand is going to get you what? The most basic Range Rover Sport in the world. It does a good job as an SUV, but it's definitely not, don't get confused or taken in by the name Sport, because there's nothing sporty about Range Rover Sport. They're not sporty at all. I can never see myself owning an SUV, but the more I drive this, especially on days like today, I actually get so drawn into this car because it's just brilliant. It really is. The ride is amazing. The view that I've got is great, but normally a high viewpoint is a trade-off for poor handling. You know, like the higher the centre of gravity, the more the car rolls around, and the less fun it is really when you're pushing on. But not so in this car, not so at all. You know, I'm coming up to a nice twisty bit of road here, so we'll put it into sports. Knock the gearbox over into manual. I've got buttons on the back of the wheel, which is now a Alpina thing instead of paddles. You can opt for paddles, by the way, but buttons are pretty cool. So we're coming down here. I mean, I'm in a 2-ton SUV. It's amazing. The brakes are good. Turn in, lovely turn in. Accelerate, the back end comes out a little bit. And it just charges. Go, go, go. You know, I'm not even revving it out. So good. And I had my good friend chasing me in his M135 the other day going down to Goodwood in this sort of conditions, and he just completely disappeared out my wing mirror. And he's a good driver as well, but he just said the traction and and I didn't even feel like I was going that fast, but it just inspires you with confidence. Now we're coming down this crazy little road here, and the road surface here is horrible. I'm in South Bucks, worst roads on the planet, but this thing just glides over everything. Occasionally it'll crash into a pothole, and that's usually the fact that I think I've got like 25 or 30 profile tyres on this. This has got the optional 21-inch wheels. That's the other option I forgot to talk about, 21-inch wheels. So yeah, let's turn down here. I'll just throw it in. We got a tiny little bit of understeer there, understandably. It's 4 degrees outside, slippery. I'm in manual, let's just go first. And there we go. So it's on the limiter at 5,500 revs. And did you see how hard it hit the limiter then? Second. So not only is it a diesel that's willing to rev over about 4.344, which most diesels, they just run out of puff at that sort of rev range. This one just keeps going until it hits the limiter. So it revs like a sort of, almost like a V8, I guess, a low revving V8, which is just brilliant. So that adds sportiness to this car. But I can't tell you, I honestly can't tell you how much fun this car is to drive when you're pushing on. The turning is just lovely. Turn it up here. Oh, did you see that? Full slide. I mean, it's just amazing. It's so, I can't tell you how precise and nice it is. We're in a 2-ton SUV. So you can get these cars serviced at any BMW dealership. It doesn't have to be an Alpina approved dealership. And they're regular service costs, you know. I might be wrong, but I think this costs the same to service as an XD3 does. I think this has got 295 section Michelin Pilot Supersports on the back. So obviously they're gonna cost you a few quid when they come to being replaced. It doesn't have any horrific sort of running costs, and on top of that, its residuals are really, really, really good because it's so rare. If I was a family man, you know, and I had a wife and 2 kids and a dog or whatever, if I had 60 grand, I can't think of anything else that would be more appealing than this. Yes, the Macan springs to mind, maybe the Macan GTS if I could wait a year or whatever the waiting list is on them. But I'm not going to get the economy, and I'm also not going to get quite the practicality because the Macan is definitely smaller in here, cabin space, smaller boot, etc. But also, my neighbour's probably going to have a Macan, and my other neighbour at the end of the street is probably going to have a Macan. No one's going to have an XD3. So let's just talk about the negatives of the car, because there are negatives. And as much as I love Alpina as a brand, and I love Alpina UK because they always look after me, but I like to be as honest as possible. Number one, the stop-start button down here next to the ignition button. When you press it to engage or to disengage the stop-start, it lights up orange like it does in most BMWs. But this one lights up so orange. I mean, it's the middle of the day now and it's bright and in my face. At night, it's so overpowering. I know it's only minor, and I know that's a BMW thing, that's not something that Alpina put in there, but that is frustrating for me. Why do I need to, it's more bright than a warning light would be on the dash. That shouldn't be there, that annoys me. Next one is the brakes. Now the brakes are amazing in this car. They're well up to the job and they slow this vehicle down. So in terms of the way they work and the way they operate, spot on. I've got no niggles with that. It's the way they look, or the way they don't look in this case. They are the standard sort of single piston calipers. I think are the same ones on my 7 Series. Now the problem is, when they're behind 21-inch, very beautiful Alpina alloys, they look very small. And they're not small, but they look small behind the 21-inch alloys. I wish that Alpina had at least given this XD3 the lovely blue sort of M Sport calipers that you get on the M135, M140s, you know, 335Ds. I wish that they'd put those 4-pop calipers on this car. The other medium niggle is at motorway speeds, you do get a fair amount of tyre roar through the cabin, especially on bad road surfaces. And again, I can't imagine this being the case in places like Germany or France where the roads are much better, but on uneven or bad road surfaces, or the M25 for instance, you do get quite a lot of tyre roar sound through the cabin. My last sort of niggle is the lack of engine sound. Now, anyone who hasn't driven a recent sort of 3-litre 6-cylinder diesel engine from Audi or BMW, Mercedes, you would be very surprised at what a great sound they make, and it's almost like a lazy V8 sound in many respects. But in this car, it comes fitted standard with the amazing looking 4-pipe Krapovich exhaust system on the back, but it just doesn't seem to produce any sound. Like there's nothing, at least I guess you're getting organic sounds, but it's a very low volume. Now, is that a bad thing? I don't know. It probably isn't, but it would be nice that when you press sport, like now, put it into... There's a nice sound there, but it's just not that amazing. Then again, that's kind of part of the magic of this car. You know, again, go out and buy a Macan GTS if you want sound and drama. If you want sort of subtlety in many respects, this engine and exhaust setup are quite outstanding. Like, if I put my foot down now and carried on talking to you, you probably wouldn't think that I was accelerating in the rate that I am. I think pretty much all in-gear acceleration figures for this car are faster than the BMW M3 or M4. That's how fast this car accelerates. It's a brilliant, brilliant SUV, it really is. And again, I still can't believe that I'm saying that, a brilliant SUV. They should be mutually exclusive, but in this case, they're really not. Thanks for watching as always, guys. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Leave any comments below. Also give Alpina GB a follow on Instagram. I'll put a link to their handle here, somewhere. Hope you have a great Christmas and Happy New Year. Thanks for everything. I really appreciate all your support. Cheers.